Hello, my name is Glen, Guyton, your cultural competency navigator, keynote speaker, diversity, equity, and inclusion in the workplace trainer. I help organizations reap the proven benefits that come from being a more diverse, inclusive, and culturally competent organization. Thank you so much for joining me. Make sure you subscribe to this channel and also check out my website. Today's topic is critical race theory. So today we are talking about critical race theory. Ooh, it's such a scary word right now, right? It's all over the media, or a scary phrase, I should say, critical race theory. What is it? What's going on? What are they teaching my children in kindergarten, or my kids learning about critical race theory? Probably not. I doubt if elementary school teachers really have time to teach critical race theory. So what's the buzz? Why is it such a scary term? Well, I think for one, critical race theory has become a catch-all phrase for anything remotely related to diversity and inclusion, or any type of conversation where we explore history from another viewpoint. I think bottom line, it's become one of these amorphous terms that everyone is using, and it's become the boogeyman of the day, critical race theory. And so once you say that, people start to feel some type of way, right? They either get really anxious, or they think that critical race theory is important. It's a cause that we should be fighting for. But what really is critical race theory? I think that we need to do our research, right? One of the problems when we work in the area of diversity, equity, and inclusion, and we're trying to train people, one of the things that we have to understand is that there are different types of analysis when it comes to this work. And so we have to really be clear what we're communicating about. What are we talking about? What is critical race theory? And everyone probably has their own definition, or some people are just operating out of ignorance because they don't know what it is, but it's something to be feared. It's something that's going to take something away from them. And it is not. It's not. I promise you it's not. I've done a little bit of research, right? Because I am your cultural competency navigator. But I've done a little research. This is a great book right here, Critical Race Theory. Check that out if you are interested. I also have a link to a blog that I've written on this topic, so that you can print that out. You can share it with your team members or anyone that may be concerned about critical race theory. One of the things I do encourage organizations that do diversity, equity, and inclusion work is to really clearly define what you're talking about. So let's not just throw out words and we don't know what they mean. So let me start with the definition of critical race theory. Critical race theory is not diversity and inclusion training, but a practice of interrogating the role of race and racism in society that emerged in the legal academy and spread to other fields of scholarship. Kimberly Crenshaw, you can look her up, who coined the term critical race theory, or CRT, notes that CRT is not a noun, but a verb. So what does that mean? It's a process. And you see that this phrase, critical race theory, started off in the legal framework in academia. So I promise you that our teachers in secondary schools, primary schools, are really not probably teaching our kids this legal framework. They're not teaching the same courses that they teach in places where people are pursuing their Juris Doctorates. So let's relax a little bit. Many states are making laws to say that critical race theory can't be taught in elementary schools and other places. And I think it's just ridiculous. I don't think elementary school teachers probably have for the most part, not that they aren't intelligent people, but for the most part, aren't lawyers. They haven't really studied and engaged the theories of law on a wide scale basis. So they're probably not equipped to really teach critical race theory in any in-depth form or fashion. Many of our teachers are stressed out and they're overworked because they are spending all of their time trying to live up to the standards, the educational standards for their state. And so they're teaching things that relate to their kids passing the standardized tests. I don't know how much time they really have to get into critical race theory. And again, critical race theory really just involves, it's a process, it's a study, it's a way of looking at things, especially from in these academic settings. And so that's what we have to be mindful of. It's not a thing per se. It's not like you can just open up a book and say, hey, okay, here's critical race theory, I'm going to teach it to you. No, it's a process. It's a way of examining things. It's a way of looking at different systems. That's what critical race theory is. And there are 5 components of critical race theory that I'm going to go over with you right now. And again, these are in the blog that I wrote. So click on the link, check out the blog, so you don't have to take notes if you're taking notes. So the 5 basic tenets of critical race theory. First of all, it just says that racism is ordinary, that it happens on a regular basis here in the United States. And it's true. I mean, I think it's true. That doesn't mean that you are a racist, but you have to understand the history of this country. Racism isn't rare. The civil rights movement hasn't been that long ago. There are many people still alive that didn't enjoy all of the freedoms and things that we enjoy now. So racism does happen on a regular basis. Now, I don't think critical race theory gives a percentage to that, but it does happen on a regular basis. And so we shouldn't be surprised by racism. I think that's all critical race theory is saying. We shouldn't be surprised about it. It's part of how we do business. And I'll get into that a little bit more. I know people are saying, oh, no, you hate this country. No, I don't hate this country. I do not hate this country. But I do understand that we have some problems. We have problems in my family. We have problems at the place, in workplaces. It doesn't mean I don't like them. I like my family. That doesn't mean we're not perfect, though. There are some things that we could do better. There are things that I could do better as a father. And so just understanding that racism is something that exists shouldn't be that problematic. It shouldn't be that controversial. All right. Now, second part of this is a little bit more wordy, a little bit more complicated, but white over color ascendancy serves an important purpose. In other words, there's a strategic element to race. There is. I teach a number of classes on helping people to communicate across cultures. One of the things that we have to understand is that as we think about race is a social construct. There's no way around that. I didn't decide what race I was going to be. We have these different categories that we put people in, and they're very limited categories that don't tell the entire story of who people are. If you are a little bit Black, then you're all Black in our society. It doesn't matter if one of your parents is white and one of them is Black. In this country, you're still considered Black. We don't have the ability to choose that classification, that legal classification. And so that structure is there for a reason. There are some historic connotations to that classification. And so being white is important in the US. It is. It's been important for a number of years. And even how we categorize white people has changed over time. We add people to that category, that racial category. Now, there's another sense of race where it's a sense of belonging for people. I enjoy being Black. I tell people that. Some people enjoy being white. It's okay if you like being white, but I'm not just Black, right? That's a part of who I am. And there are other parts of my heritage that I'm proud of. I'm proud to be from Texas. Some people may not be proud of that, but I like being from Texas. There are so many other aspects of who we are. But critical race theory just points out that there are certain benefits to being white. Now, there are other benefits to being other things, to being wealthy, to being, handsome. There are benefits to being handsome. I mean, there are all types of benefits that we enjoy based on who we are, based on our cultural surroundings. And it's just a fact. And so let's not get so upset when someone says, hey, there's some privilege to being white in America. There is some privilege to being white in America, being a part of that dominant culture. And we've added to that category, that racial category. Again, that's something that's placed on people. Many times in our history, we refer to people, as maybe French or German or Jewish or Italian. We use other categorizations, but now we kind of group people into these smaller, I would say maybe larger categories. So we have fewer categories that we pump a lot of people into, just like we say Hispanic people. Now, that can mean a number of things, but I've known people from Mexico. I've known people from Puerto Rico. I've known people from Spain, and those are all very rich cultures within themselves. But we've lumped them all into one group of people for convenience sake. Again, for us to decide how resources are distributed in our society. So we have to just be mindful of these things, especially when we're thinking about it in terms of critical race theory. Next, the dominant society racializes different minority groups at different times. What does that mean? We actually kind of focus our attention in the US on different groups from time to time in order to benefit the broader society. So at some point when, I'll just use this as an example, African American in the civil rights movement and some of the freedoms that Black people enjoy was actually a direct result of Black people returning from the war. And so many Black people fought in Europe. They fought for this country. And so when they returned to the United States, the amount of freedom that they had was reduced, right? And so some of the things, the acts and laws that had to be changed were in direct relationship to a group of people that enjoyed certain freedoms in one place, but then they had to come back to the US and they had to get other freedoms. It would have been hard for you to go backwards, or for our society to go backwards in regards to the freedoms enjoyed by many Black people. Now, this is an oversimplification, but I just want to use that as an example. There are many times when we needed an increased workforce, and so that changed the immigration laws. Just think about the Chinese and maybe the railroad, working on the railroad. We needed more workers from that group, and so we either expand or we contract the amount of immigrants that we are allowing to this country based on our needs. We do that with our southern border. And so we do these things from time to time based on our needs. And so in some years, in some generations, we really need a lot of these migrant workers to come over here. And then in the other years, other generations, we don't want people to come over here because it's taking away our jobs or whatever the justification is at the time. And so how we treat people based on these racial categories changes based on the needs of our country, or how we want to benefit the people that are part of the United States. So that happens. That's a reality that happens. Next, the fifth point, legal storytelling is important. And so again, critical race theory really is rooted in this legal framework. Storytelling reinforces the notion of a unique voice of color, the unique voice of color that BIPOC people, so Black, Indigenous, people of color have in regards to the legal system. It means that other viewpoints are important, and nobody can tell my story like me. That's an important part of critical racism. And so instead of seeing everything through one perspective, you see things from multiple perspectives, and you get the people that are a part of that perspective to participate in the process. That's critical race theory right there. Those five things are the five tenets of it. What's threatening about that? Nothing. It doesn't say that white people aren't good. It doesn't say that our country is inherently evil. It doesn't say any of those things. It just gives voice to people that may have been marginalized. It recognizes some systems that we have in place that change from time to time based on racial identity. And it also highlights that the dominant culture, which is white people, benefit from some of these systemic issues. Does that mean that you personally are racist, or that you don't like people of color, or that you don't like Black people, or that you hate Mexicans? No, it doesn't mean any of that. And so we just really need to be careful of what we allow the media and these outside forces to pump into our brains. We don't have to operate in fear. Critical race theory just allows us take a step back and to really analyze things from different points of view with a basic understanding of some very key points about racial identity and how it plays out in this country, right? Okay, so you can still love your country, you can still love America, you can still wave the flag and do all those things, and also understand critical race theory. As a matter of fact, I think if we really explore these things in a healthy way, we can find ways to make our country even better. It's nothing to be afraid of, but it's something I think that we should embrace. But so what does this mean for you in the workplace? What do you do? All right. So four things that I'm going to tell you, four things I'm going to tell you in regards to critical race theory and what it means for you in your workplace. Number one, don't confuse diversity, equity, and inclusion training for critical race theory. You're not doing that in your workplace. You're not teaching critical race theory unless you work in a law firm or you work for the district attorney or that you're in a legal system. Then you need to be teaching critical race theory. But for many of us, diversity and inclusion training is not the same as critical race theory. We want you to have a culturally competent organization. We want you to learn valuable skills so that you can lead your diverse workforce, that you can take advantage of the benefits that come from having that inclusive and equitable team. That's diversity, equity, inclusion training. Critical race theory, again, really focuses on those 5 components. Will there be some topics that are related? Yeah, there'll be some topics that are related, but you're not doing the same framework when you are trying to work at diversity, equity, and inclusion in your workplace. There are many other things that you need to focus on. You know, equipping your employees, retention, recruiting employees, all of those things. That's not critical race. That's not critical race theory. It's not. That's human resources. Now, believe that racism exists. Now, that is important. Now, that is a connecting point. You have to believe that racism exists, just like sexism exists, bias and prejudice exists in the workplace. Why? Because you have a workplace full of humans. Now, unless you have a workplace full of robots, don't worry about this. If you have a workplace full of robots, you probably don't have any robot racism. You may have some, what would it be called if you don't like robots? I don't know, robot phobia, robot phobic. I don't know what that's called. I don't think we have a term for that yet. But anyway, racism does exist. So that means that you need to think about diversity, equity, and inclusion. You need to look at your systems. You need to look at your processes to make sure they are equitable across all of the identity differences that are present in the community that you serve and the people that you hire. All right, so that's pretty simple. Next, manage privilege and manage your team. Now, that's an important part. And so as you think about critical race theory, one of the tenets of that says, hey, we racialize different groups at different times for different benefits. And there's some privilege when it comes to being a part of that dominant culture, being a part of the white culture. So if you're going to do anything in your workplace that's remotely connected to that, is managing privilege. What does that mean? It means just really just having fair, equitable systems and understand some of the historic oppressions people have potentially faced. And it's really just good human resource work. You want to make sure that you compensate people fairly, that people have equal opportunity based on the work that they perform. You want to have good systems and processes in place. You want to build trust in your workplace. What's wrong with that? There's nothing scary about that, right? Hey, we're going to all work together. If you put in 2 hours of work and I put in 2 hours of work and we work on the same project, we're going to get paid the same. We're going to get the same benefits. We're going to get the same opportunity. That's part of what we want to do. Now, sometimes we may have to take additional steps if people have been disenfranchised for long periods of time, or if we have an imbalance that needs to be righted. We may have to take some other steps. We may have to be more intentional with this group versus this other group. We may be underrepresented, so we have to do some other things. But eventually, we want to bring a good balance, good harmony to our workplaces. And finally, another thing that you can do in your workplace that may have some relationships to critical race theory is just give voice to all your employees. You want to have a good system so people can speak up, so people feel free to share their stories, so people feel free to point out opportunities, but also point out if there are some problems in the workplace. We don't want people to be retaliated against or feel like they can't be open about their experiences in your workplace. I mean, word of mouth really matters. This is basically what it comes down to in the workplace. Word of mouth really matters. I've worked with a number of organizations in as far as training organizations, and some companies have a really good culture. And I've said, hey, you might want to come work for this company if you're a person of color, because they understand it. They get it right. They have good systems. There are great opportunities for you in this company. Come work for this company. Now, there are other organizations that I work for, and I would say, hey, don't go work over there. They're not going to treat you well. They don't know how to handle diversity. They're not going to be a good place for you to hit your wagon. Like the old people say, hit your wagon to this organization, to this company. So we want people to be able to speak favorably about our organizations, the things that we do. We want people to be able to contribute, to be included in the process. That's the importance of giving voice to your employees. And if you give your employees voice, if they feel comfortable, if they feel connected, they're going to say good things about you. They're going to work hard for you. They're going to stay around for a long time. You won't have to deal with all of this transition. You won't have the negative impact on your recruiting effort. So it's important that we give our employees voice. So please check out the links to my blog. I have some resources on there. Again, this is a really good book. Check out this book. I really enjoyed reading this and learning more about critical race theory and also how it's evolved. It has evolved some, but I promise you, if you're worried about your 5-year-old learning about critical race theory, they're not learning about critical race theory. If they can just pick out their colors and count to, what do 5-year-olds count to now? I don't know. My wife's a teacher. I should ask her. Count to 100 or whatever. If they can do that, you should be happy. I don't think they're going to be dissecting legal frameworks at the elementary school down the street. So don't be afraid about things that you don't understand. Do a little research on your own. Learn about critical race theory from reputable sources. And if you ever need any help, if I can help you in your workplace in regards to diversity, equity, and inclusion training, feel free to reach out. Check out my website. Make sure you subscribe to this channel. And I appreciate the time that we spent today. Thank you. Have a great day. I'm Glen Guyton, your cultural competency navigator.